Welcome back to Big Mouth and welcome to my James Bond discussion. Should James Bond be retired? You can follow me on Twitter @MoviesTVMad, on Instagram @MoviesTVMad555, and on TikTok @MoviesTVMad XXX. Yes, now a few months ago I did a video telling you all that I'd seen No Time to Die, the latest James Bond film. There's a reason for it. I don't want to go into it too deeply, but they thought it was going to be released, and that's how I got access to that film. Now, of course, they thought it was going to be released quite a few times, but COVID has put pay to that. Even rumours of it ending up on Netflix. No chance of that happening now. But a bitter blow for No Time to Die yesterday, as Venom, Let There Be Carnage, has moved up its release date to October the 1st. Now, I think No Time to Die's new release is September the 31st or something like that. And I think in America slightly later. I think it's October or something. So they're going to clash. Now, that's an interesting element. That's not why I'm doing this video. But it is an interesting element to pay attention to. Will they move the date back again? Oh, I mean, God forbid they move it to next year, which we don't want that to happen. But with Top Gun Maverick not happening, there's more space to move that movie. We'll have to wait and see what happens. But should James Bond be retired? Now, you probably don't know this, but I'm a big James Bond fan. I grew up with James Bond and I enjoyed those movies. I think all the eras were great, some better than the others. Sean Connery era was fantastic. Roger Moore was my first Bond, so he's my favourite Bond. You know, I'm not saying anything negative about Sean. I love his movies too. Timothy Dalton had two great movies as far as I'm concerned. That's my opinion. You know, Pierce Brosnan was the GOAT, a brilliant James Bond, and did quite a few James Bond movies. But even his last Bond film, Die Another Day, which split the Bond fandom, it's still an exciting movie. It's still cool. It's still James Bond. You may not like the invisible car, but it's still pretty cool. You know, it's not perfect, but it worked for me and it made a hell of a lot of money. I think it may have even made more money than Casino Royale, which is interesting because it wasn't Brosnan who wanted to give up on that role. It was Barbara Broccoli and Michael G. Wilson, just trying to remember their names. They run the franchise. Now, that's been complicated now, obviously, because Michael and Barbara have still got stakes within that company. They own Eon, so they kind of own the Bond franchise, but so do Amazon Video now as well. So that's going to be a very complicated relationship. So James Bond was this long-running great franchise. It wasn't interconnected like the MCU, but it was a long-running franchise, and as young men, we grew up and watched it. Of course, a lot of young women enjoyed Bond as well, but mostly young men enjoyed that. But there's a lot of young women I talk to, actually young women today, that love James Bond. But I think, was it 2006 or was it? Yeah, I think it was 2006. They decided to reboot the whole thing, and they cast Daniel Craig as James Bond. Now, a lot of people were pissed off about this because he's blonde. That never even came to my mind. I always was happy to give Dan a chance. Dan has got great screen presence. He's got great physicality. He was perfect for the role, but I was concerned that they were rebooting the whole thing and just saying goodbye to the rest of the series. But there wasn't really, at the time, much blowback about this. So they decided to do a Casino Royale movie and adapt the book from Ian Fleming. Now, they were pretty faithful to that book in a lot of ways. I'm not saying they copy and pasted it, but this is more like Ian Fleming's James Bond. Whether you like the original Bonds, Connery, Moore, Dalton, Brosnan, they weren't really a loyal adaptation of what Ian Fleming foresaw as the character, because Cubby Broccoli had a formula and it worked, and I still love those movies, whether they were faithful to, you know, Ian Fleming's vision of the character or not. And so to reboot the whole thing I think is a big thing, and it's something that has to work. And Casino Royale is one of the best blockbuster movies I have ever seen. It's absolutely fantastic. Now, it doesn't feel like James Bond, the James Bond I've been watching all my life, but it still felt really robust, aggressive, awesome, and he was a great new age James Bond. He felt like Jack Bauer and Jason Bourne, and this is what, of course, that's what they were aiming for, wasn't it? So it worked. I think it made just over 600 million globally. I think that's how much it made. Comment down below if I'm wrong about that. So not a great deal of money, but it did okay. It actually made about the same amount of money as Man of Steel. That's interesting. But anyway, so everyone was happy with that film, and it finished with a bit of a cliffhanger as he finds, what's his name, Mr. White, and announces himself as Bond. James Bond, a new era, rebooted era of James Bond. Everyone's happy. Even the doubters were happy. At the back of my mind, I'm thinking, isn't it a shame he couldn't have just been the next Bond? But maybe he wouldn't have worked for the original franchise. I don't know. Because if you get this reboot wrong, then you really are in trouble. Then you get Quantum of Solace. Quantum of Solace is kind of a carry through from Casino Royale. It's continuing. They're now doing a connected universe all of a sudden, where each film continues from the other. I think that was a great idea. The problem is with Quantum of Solace, it just didn't execute what they were attempting to do. By the time that film finishes, it just feels like a third act of a movie rather than the continuation of an epic James Bond film we all enjoyed. So they got it wrong and it didn't work. That doesn't mean I don't like the connective tissue, because I'm a fan of a connective tissue in movie franchises. I prefer it. I like the connectivity and the continuation. I like that. And so the third movie was Skyfall, right? Skyfall was a huge hit. And Skyfall was a great film that we all enjoyed, and we were saying it was a classic. Daniel Craig was mostly responsible for bringing in that director whose name escapes me. Now, that's another issue. Daniel Craig seems to have a lot of kind of authority on the set of James Bond and makes these decisions all the time. But let me tell you what I think of Skyfall. I don't think it's as good as Casino Royale. I think it's an overrated movie, and it's an absolute rip-off, and this is a very controversial take, of The Dark Knight. Yes, Christopher Nolan's Dark Knight. Basically, the villain in Skyfall is a rip-off of the Joker. Jesus Christ, we even discover that James Bond's family had a mansion with a fucking servant, right? I think it's a total fucking rip-off of The Dark Knight and the Batman character. Again, comment down below. Do you agree with me or not? So it was quite unoriginal. But the film was good. It worked. We all enjoyed it. So then we thought, what could possibly go wrong? They're keeping the same director. So then we had Spectre. The title excited me by no end. I thought, wow, Spectre. This new franchise is actually going to do their own Spectre, their own Blofeld. What could possibly go wrong? The film is an absolute mess. It simply doesn't work. I don't think any of it works. I mean, the action in the Craig era is always robust and sensational. No question about that. But it simply didn't work as a movie. And that whole thing at the end, which was the worst thing, where he decides to leave MI5 or MI6 or whatever it is, and not be a 00 agent anymore, really pissed me off. Nearly as much as the end of The Dark Knight Rises, where he lives happily ever after with Selena Kyle. Or maybe it's a fantasy. Who bloody well knows? So then we find out Danny Boyle is going to direct No Time to Die. I'm thinking, Jesus Christ, Danny Boyle. I mean, I'm a big fan of Danny's, and I've met him before and everything. He's a great man. He's a great director. I mean, for me, Danny Boyle doing a film like Bond is a wet dream to me. And then when they got rid of him for creative differences, and I was hugely disappointed. And then I was thinking, is this another Daniel Craig issue? Let's not forget, after Spectre, he said he'd rather, you know what he said. He'd rather, you know what, I can't say it on YouTube, than do another Bond movie. And if he did another Bond movie, it was simply for the money. Well, guess what? He came back simply for the money. So they brought in a new director, and I can't pronounce his name. Is it something Fukunaga or something like that, right? He's a pretty cool director. I'd never had an issue with that. But, you know, Danny Boyle simply didn't need replacing. So I was worried from then. Then we heard that Phoebe Waller-Bridge would come in to do the gags. But of course, Phoebe Waller-Bridge was on Feminist Watch. The feminists have been after James Bond for years, since I've been a small boy. And finally, in this era of identity politics, they've got their hands on James Bond's cods and they're going to be squeezing it. We quickly found out that there would be a new 007, a female 007. Here we go. The real reason James Bond retired from the Secret Service. So, of course, he's with this new love interest from Spectre. I can't say anything about the movie, by the way, and I nearly did, by the way. But what can I tell you about No Time to Die before I answer my very own question whether James Bond should be retired? Well, I can tell you about the movie. I think the villain is the best thing about it. That's what I'll say. But I think it's a film like Batman vs Superman, like The Last Jedi, where people will be split on it. People will be talking about this for a very, very long time. And this could make less money than Casino Royale. That's what I think from what I saw from this movie. Unless they've worked on it, which I very much doubt. I don't think they've reworked it or anything like that. So, do I think James Bond should be retired? Shall I tell you who should be retired? Barbara Broccoli and Michael G. Wilson. Recently, they've been talking about the acquisition of Amazon, Amazon grabbing hold of MGM, and making promises like there will be no James Bond spin-offs, and they were sounding like that was a good thing. For a long time now, I've wanted to see a young James Bond series, spin-off series from the movies. I wanted to see an M series, a spin-off series. I wanted to see a Miss Moneypenny series, you know, a Felix Leiter series. You know, there's so many things you could do with this franchise in terms of spin-offs, like, you know, Disney are doing with the MCU on Disney+. The things that, you know, the things like Peacemaker, we're going to be seeing next year from the DCEU spin-offs, you know, on HBO Max. And to say they're not going to be doing that and they're not willing to be doing it like it's a bad thing shows me that these two are just too behind the times, and they really shouldn't have the honour of running James Bond. Now, Barbara Broccoli had took over brilliantly from her father, and she's been doing this for a very long time with her half-brother, Michael G. Wilson. But I think if they can't get with the programme, if they haven't got the ambitions to create a multi-universal, you know, connective, tissue kind of franchise, then they need to get out of Dodge. Now, I know they tried it at the beginning of Daniel Craig's era, and I think it's been a bit disjointed. But even the writers that they've had on their team for a very long time simply have to be removed. James Bond needs a new creative team. Really, Barbara Broccoli and Michael G. Wilson should take a payoff and let new blood, you know, be the creative lenses of this franchise. Because if they don't, James Bond won't need to retire. It'll be dead. I mean, there's questions you have to ask yourselves, and obviously I've seen the film and I can't answer these questions. What happens to this new 007? What happens to James Bond in this film? These are the questions you're going to be asking, and you're probably already putting two and two together and making 4 already, or 6 or 8, or whatever your theories are. Again, I can't answer those theories for you because it would spoil the film. But as I say, if you're asking questions about the future of James Bond right now, and it's something else that Barbara Broccoli and Michael G. Wilson said, they're not even looking for a brand new James Bond yet. They want to wait for everyone to digest the new movie, and it's like they want to know if this film is successful. They want to know what direction to go to, and I think that's very interesting as well. So I think James Bond has been in trouble since Quantum of Solace, to be honest with you, and I know that Skyfall was, you know, loved by so many people, and people call it a classic. Personally, even though Casino Royale was great and Skyfall was great, I think rebooting it was a mistake. And I think when we saw Casino Royale, we kind of went, well, maybe it was the right time. I think when you've got an iconic, you know, long-running movie franchise like that, you don't burn down everything that's happened. Now, they're going to do that with the DCEU, but at least that's coming from kind of a divisive reaction from the media and a lot of the fans. But James Bond has been loved for many, many years. And to burn all of that down and do a reboot, I think that was a huge mistake looking back now. But of course, it's always great looking back with hindsight. Too many mistakes have been made in the Daniel Craig era, and I wish I could talk more about what happens and, you know, things like that, because I think you're going to, obviously, when you see the film, you're going to see what happens, and it's kind of, without giving anything away, oh, this didn't work, let's try something new, kind of thing. That's all I'm going to say. And it just shows you how incompetent Barbara and Michael now are. And I don't think that was always the case. But we are now in the 21st century. People digest their movies differently. They want spin-offs. They want connective tissues. They want, you know, let's think about this, right? There's going to be 4 DCEU movies next year. There's around 4, pre-pandemic, I think the MCU were doing around 4 movies a year as well. This should be the ambitions of James Bond. Now, clearly you can't have 4 James Bond movies a year, but you certainly could kind of, you know, do some world building and have other characters who could do James Bond spin-off movies, some spin-off TV shows on Amazon Prime as well. It would work. It would be huge. People love James Bond. You could still actually, you know, James Bond's adventures could come every 2 years or 3 years, and people could still wait for it and get excited for it. But also you could have a young James Bond series if you needed your dose of Bond before the next movie came out. This franchise has a lot of potential in the modern era. There is still an audience for Bond. There still is for good James Bond. But they've made so many mistakes, and I don't know if Barbara and Michael are capable of, you know, fixing those mistakes, because bringing in Phoebe Waller-Bridge was a huge mistake, and I don't think that was Barbara's decision or Michael's decision. I think that's Daniel Craig's decision, and you're going to see the consequences of that decision. Now, Phoebe Waller-Bridge is a great actor, and she's a great writer, and she's a great creative. We've seen the stuff she's done for herself, you know, the series that she's done, and they're great. She's a very talented lady, and I'm not here to give Phoebe shade. I have a lot of respect for her. But she's clearly a feminist, and allowing a feminist creative to get their hands on James Bond's cods and squeeze them and never let go is a big problem, everyone. It's a big problem to me, and it's a big problem to hardcore James Bond fans. Now, you may not like men, Hollywood and entertainment industry, but we're your consumer. We're the ones who decide whether you're successful or not, especially when it comes to James Bond. And so giving the 007, you know, code name to somebody else, no matter who it is, man or woman, I think is rather toxic. It's wrong, and it's already got some blowback, but just wait till you all see the movie. At this point, from what I know, if you're not willing to do spin-offs on Amazon Prime, if you're not willing to do kind of be expansive with a few other James Bond movies using other characters to spin off from in cinema, if you don't have that ambition, then I will answer my own question here and now. Yes, James Bond should be retired. But if you have the ambition to look at the MCU and look at the Fast and the Furious franchise and see what amazing things you can do, then James Bond could be going for the next 30 to 50 years. But right now, the way Michael G. Wilson and Barbara Broccoli are running it and talking about it, I'm very worried about the future of the James Bond franchise. This is Movies TV Mad. I'm Mick, your host with the most. Just ask your girlfriends and your wives. I will see you again in the next video, so please like, share and subscribe, and I will see you again soon.